This is the Marketing Agency Power Hour, and I'm your host, Cal Wilder. Each week, we'll power through discussions on business challenges, success stories, and game-changing strategies. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, provider of bookkeeping and accounting for marketing agencies. Let's get started. I'm excited to talk to today's guest. She's a marketing thought leader, an international keynote speaker, an advisor, and a pioneering entrepreneur. She's an award-winning marketer leading at the intersection of AI, creativity, and authentic storytelling. She's an advisory board member of South by Southwest. She's on the Cincinnati Mayor's AI Advisory Task Force and leads Ohio's largest AI meetup. She's the human behind Creativity Squared. Her day job is the CEO of Sociality Squared. Helen Todd, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Cal.
Notice my background, though, watching on video, notice my background's a little bit different than usual. I'm having some construction in my primary office, so I'm in my secondary office. So Helen, tell me, what is the single most powerful strategy for success in your marketing agency now?
Well, if I could sum it up in one word, it would be adaptability.
What does that mean to you?
Well, ever since the beginning of social media marketing as an industry, I feel like adaptability has been a part of that because it has been such a fast paced landscape that's forever changing. Platforms come and go, RIP to Google Plus and Vine and a bunch of platforms. And they're constantly changing, it seems like by the day. Then fast forward to the ChatGPT moment, and it makes social media changes look, like child's play. With every day, something else new is coming out with AI and new technological breakthroughs. So kind of just being fluid and adaptable and, just ready to dive in, take initiative and figure out, how to apply the principles with a forever changing landscape of tactics and platforms.
How do you feel like the pace of change in your industry is today compared to 5 or 10 or 15 years ago?
Oh my goodness, it's whiplash. Absolute whiplash. I mean, I think everyone, even as close to as I am to artificial intelligence and Gen I think everyone's still kind of wrapping their heads around what does it mean? How do we make it into our workflows and not just make it, a new shiny object and finding a problem to solve with it, but actually getting down to the problem level and the systems level of like, what do we do with this new AI tool? So I don't have all the answers. I don't think anyone's really an expert when it comes to AI because we're all trying to figure it out all at the same time.
When do you feel like this AI adoption really picked up its pace? Because I have a perspective, but you're in the in the industry agency space and know better than me.
Yeah, well, I mean, AI has been around for a long time. I mean, it's dictated, the algorithms and the feeds, what type of content we get. It's in our, stoplights to our GPS and our voice assistants. But the real game changer was when the ChatGPT moment happened in November of 2022, and it became the fastest user adoption of all time, gaining 100 million users in 2 months. And that really changed, the Gen AI game, and put our generative artificial intelligence on the map, and started what we're now in this, like, AI race, quote, unquote. So yeah, it was the ChatGPT moment, that happened, that really set us off where we're at today.
Yeah, we're grappling in the accounting and finance industry with it as well. I feel like it became very accessible to the masses and much easier to access and use. In my view, maybe about a year ago, but really, I think the beginning of this year is when I really noticed. Wow, you had some of the newer releases of ChatGPT or X AI Grok, and they just became just a lot more available, I guess, and easier to use. And you didn't have to spend millions of dollars building and training your own model, right? Because I had some competitors in my space who were trying to automate 100% of the bookkeeping and accounting for small businesses, and they raised, collectively hundreds of millions of dollars of VC money and now you can pretty much do it for $30 a month.
The great equalizer, so they say.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't want to be building, you know, accounting software to compete against Intuit, with all their resources now.
Right.
Anyway, let's not get too sidetracked on that. So adaptability has been critical, and as a founder, an owner, you by nature are probably very adaptable. But how does that translate into the rest of your company and your staff and your team?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much through everything. At a client level, we always want to be delivering what's best for our clients and their communities and audiences. So that's, listening, keeping an ear to the ground, seeing how, the response to the content, how it changes across platforms, and then optimizing our, content strategies based on what we're seeing. On a team level, I think one of the traits that just makes a good social media marketer is the ability to take initiative and try to figure out these tools on your own because we're all, figuring them out at the same time and learning from one another as like at a very tactical level, everything, changes day by day. So I think the team is, very adaptable too and takes a lot of initiative to trying to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, as a business owner, someone once said, if there's not a fire that you're putting out, you're not doing anything right. So with every fire, there's like, how do we get through this, around it? So I take it as a good sign that we're doing something right if there's multiple fires to be put out over time.
How do you go about organizing and sharing information within your firm about the use of AI? Is it, some agencies I've spoke to are kind of unstructured, and people, are expected to take initiative and figure out cool things and then share it with everybody else. And then other firms have, formal weekly meetings to review things, everybody together as a team. So what's your approach? I know you're relatively deep in it.
Well, I would recommend everyone having like a general policy so everyone on their team knows what the leadership wants one way or another, whether it's more of an experimental approach or more of a guarded. And, it varies by industry, but how much legal needs to approve or be involved or, what you're allowed to put in the LLMs, because we certainly don't want to be putting in any proprietary information, especially on the free plans. So I recommend for any, owner or leadership to have an AI policy so everyone's on the same page. For us, we're very experimental. So I encourage the team to test out the tools. However, because as most people are aware, these large language models were not trained with consent. They just kind of scraped the internet and they're saying, it's fair use. The courts are figuring that out, but a lot of the models are not commercially safe. And depending on the your subscription, some of the output might not, according to the terms of service, be available for commercial use too. So it's always really important to understand the terms of service and if the LLMs are commercially safe. So for the ones that are not commercially safe, which is pretty much all of them,
How do you define commercially safe?
commercially safe would be Adobe Firefly, Getty Images, and Shutterstock, where they actually got the photographers and image creators consent to train the models. So anything that comes, any image or video that comes out of these platforms are commercially safe because you know that the material that has trained them is copyright protected and that those people default opted in or did not opt out to have their works. So they're trained on consented works. And by that, that means that they're commercially safe to use. If you were to say use an image from ChatGPT's paid model, their terms of service lets you use them for commercial purposes, but technically they're not commercially safe because the courts are kind of deciding right now what fair use means and copyright in this new era of AI. So we tend to be, when it comes to our clients and brands, very, very conservative when it comes to copyrights, respecting artists and their works. So anything that we might use in that way would be brainstorming, storyboarding, but never, publishing on social media. Because until we actually know the landscape we tend to be very, very conservative when it comes to copyrights.
So if I paraphrase that a little bit, with the established commercially safe providers you mentioned, there's a clear chain of custody where you end up with a legal right to utilize the work. Whereas if you just get some generic image from ChatGPT, then the underlying authors may have a claim against you later because their work was incorporated without their consent into your work. Is that the gist of it?
Potentially, if that would be
No.
hard to prove, but we just don't know the implications if, down the line, the court, um, decide that anything created with AI, these non-commercially safe platforms do, um, hurt, the copyright owners of the authors and video makers and image makers. What does that mean for images that have been created by those? I don't think your small shops and mom and pop shops are gonna have to worry, but especially the bigger brands and just the more liability you have as a brand, I would be super, super, super careful of using those types of, images publicly.
Right, because your firm has worked with, larger businesses like Fitbit, et cetera, where
Yeah.
this is really important, right? The
Oh, absolutely.
typical, $1 or $2 million a year mom and pop company that doesn't really compete against the Fitbits of the world probably doesn't worry too much about it, but it'll be interesting how it shakes out.
Yeah, for sure. I think everyone's, very curious how it's all gonna play out.
Yeah, yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about this AI meetup that you lead? Because that could be something that's really interesting to listeners.
Yeah, sure. We're actually next month in October is our 2-year anniversary. And when the ChatGPT moment happened, it felt like the early days of social media marketing all over again. Sociality Squared, my social media agency, we were probably one of the first dozen ever social media agencies to ever exist. So fast forward when the ChatGPT moment happened, it felt like the early days of social media marketing all over again, like this big disruptive technology that's going to impact everything for better or for worse. So I pounced on it in multiple ways. And one of those ways was getting connected with Kendra Ramirez, who's another local AI leader here in Cincinnati. And a friend connected us just through a comment on LinkedIn, and she's like, "Where are my AI enthusiasts?" And we hopped on the phone and like, "Let's do a meetup." And before you know it, a month later, we had our first meetup in October of 2023 with 75 people. And now every month at the University of Cincinnati's Digital Futures building, we have over 150 people that gather to learn from each other, collaborate, and just, share the latest of what's happening in the AI space. So it's a really great community. And one thing that I'm super proud of, we're nearing 1,700 members, and we champion responsible AI. Where in the coast, you often hear move fast and break things. Here in the Midwest, we're like, maybe we should validate our AI before we turn everyone into beta testers." So we very much champion responsible AI here.
Cool. And if and it's only open to people who are in the greater Cincinnati area, or are there any kind of remote join options?
We've partnered with other meetups in other areas, and given our format away, like Louisville just had their first AI meetup last month, which was really exciting to see. But for Cincy AI for Humans, it's all in person here in Cincinnati. But we have people who've driven down from Chicago regularly from an hour and a half radius from Indianapolis, Louisville, Lexington, Columbus that come to our meetup. But if anyone's interested, I would encourage you to look for local meetups in your area, or if you're interested in our format, to reach out, and we're happy to give you our secret sauce of what we do and to start your own meetup. Because it really does make a difference to have in-person community to be able to geek out and talk about all the things and that's happening in artificial intelligence.
Very cool. You've got a lot of exciting things going on. I'm curious what, you know, if things worked out great for you and your firm over the next 3 or 5 years and you crushed all your goals, what would that look like?
Retired early and being on a beach somewhere with a cocktail. You know,
You're
they talk about AI, like, freeing up all this time, so we have more leisure time. I don't really see that happening, but I would like to believe the promise that AI will free up our time so we have more time for, higher order creative thinking and more time, doing leisure activities.
Yeah, that's the key, right? Is AI going to be a race to the bottom in pricing, or are we going to be able to substitute other higher value services in lieu of what can be automated and maintain pricing or increase pricing potentially, right?
Yeah, and I'm, more worried, honestly, about the workloads of employees. I've already heard, some leaders say that they're stopping hiring and just expecting more, out of their employees with the use of AI. So, all this free time, that we're supposed to have, I think it's just gonna how we're seeing it play out is actually just more work demand, to get more productivity per employee. And, we're not machines. So I think that there's got to be some sort of work balance when it comes to expectations and productivity with AI at the end of the day, too.
Right. So navigating AI is a big challenge. Everybody's grappling with it. I'm curious for you specifically, what's a big challenge you're facing now or something you've had to overcome in the last year or two at your firm?
Oh, goodness. I think with everyone's trying to figure out artificial intelligence, and there's different approaches. Marketers are usually early adopters when it comes to new tools like this. We kind of gravitate towards them and start incorporating them early. But I think there's a difference between just testing a tool and actually like baking in workflows. And that's something that I will say our production schedule has been so crazy that we're still working on really mapping out all of our workflows. And one thing that I want to do, because I've interviewed so many people about, is really setting up our own custom model, at least for my podcast that's built on all the corpus of work. And we started doing that a little bit for per client, like setting up dedicated feeds and whatnot for our clients. But yeah, I would say just going deeper into the integration of AI at a workflow level, and making it most meaningful that way. And we're learning, and then we can help our clients with our learnings as well.
So really ingraining it into your business processes rather than have it in this parallel universe that people can tap into however they feel like it, huh?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Cool. So I've got to ask you at least one or two questions about accounting and finance, since that's my day job. So how do you go about managing the accounting and finance at your firm in terms of like who do you have do the work? Maybe that's a good first question.
Yeah, I mean, we're small, so, I manage all the invoicing and billing and, the accounting stuff, and then work with a bookkeeper and a tax accountant, that helps me. But we're pretty streamlined, so between QuickBooks, and my team, uh, we're pretty well-oiled machine.
Great. And what kind of reports do you like to get every month or every week to help you stay on top of what's going on financially in the business?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty good pulse. Of course, cash flow is always an important one, profitability. Um, uh, one thing that I'm always proud of is our retention rate with our clients. Last time I actually calculated it, it was like 3.5 years per client, which is always great to see the renewals and the retention rate. Um, uh, yeah, and just profitability. Sometimes, I get profitability per client, and that's really helpful to see that.
Mm. Your people must track their time by client or project then if you can get the client profitability reports.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Which that metric time metric is kinda getting outdated, but for the current time being, we either do by the hour or my team, is mostly independent contractors, so then it's a project fee, if not hourly, that I work with my team on.
Yeah. Everybody talks about doing away with timesheets, but at the end of the day, people are by far our largest cost. and we need to know how profitable client engagements are and how to price them properly. And so it's kind of very hard to get around having to collect time by project or time by client. I guess my perspective is try to make it as easy as possible using timers and task management systems that just kind of clock the time as you work on. You open up a task, the timer starts, you close the task, the timer stops. Like no one needs to sit down and fill out an Excel spreadsheet timesheet anymore. But
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, and there's so many great timekeeper apps where you just push a button and can attribute it to a client. So I've tested some of those over the years. But I do think in general, because AI is improving people's productivity, that moving from a time-based to a values-based model is just where the world's going. And the more that we can wrap our heads around that, I think it will protect the value that you create and not, to your point earlier, be a race to the bottom. Because there's this old, I don't know if Picasso actually said it, but there's some quote by Picasso that gets attributed to him where someone saw him like at a cafe and went up, was like, "Oh, make a portrait for me." And he like scribbled down like a portrait in a minute. And she was like, and he was like, $1 million. And the woman was like, "You did that in a minute." And he's like, "No, no, no. It took my entire lifetime to do this portrait." So like the value that you bring, isn't always reflected in the time that goes into the work and the expertise to execute it.
Yeah, I think, for the firms that have an hourly model in the back of my mind, especially in the accounting industry, a lot of firms still have the hourly model and managing scope and scope creep and change orders and things like that introduces a lot of friction when you go to a fixed price model. But
Yeah.
to the extent things are getting automated away, but you're still delivering the same value, you don't want to see your revenue get cut in half or something like that.
Yeah. I think we're all kind of balancing and walking this tightrope right now and trying to figure it out. But I definitely am pro values based in general.
Yeah. Well, let's learn a little bit more about how you got to where you are now, right? So let's go back to little Helen. Did you think you'd be running your own business one day?
Well, I always had ambitions to go up the corporate ladder. My first internship was in college with Fidelity Investments, and I kind of liked the just the structure of getting promoted and a path towards leadership. But my first job outside of graduate school was at an events company that had just started adopting social media marketing, and I loved it. And after 10 months, they actually fired me. I say it was, collateral damage from just, they were growing so fast, it was a small shop. So the next day, I had a domain idea and went to GoDaddy at, like, 5 in the morning, and, that was the start of Sociality Squared, and I launched in February of 2010, my own social media agency, that year with a friend. And, yeah, it's been 15 years, since then, which I never, yeah, intended it to be, but now I can't think of anything else, and it would be hard to work for someone else, to be honest.
Yeah, get to a point you might become unemployable. You have to run your own business.
Right.
But yeah, 2010, that takes me back. We started SmartBooks in 2009, similar time frame. And remember within that first year, I went on a sales call with this company in Alston, Massachusetts, that was like a layer on top of Twitter. And I didn't really know much about Twitter, but they were explaining it's this social media app that lets you post 140 characters and communicate with people. And you can tell them when you're going to the coffee shop and like all these, like, I don't care when you go to the coffee shop. Well, who cares? 140 characters? That's not very many. And by the it just spiraled from there.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, that's for sure.
Well, you were there at the beginning, which is great.
Yep, before Instagram existed, before Pinterest, so I've seen the platforms come and go and new ones pop up, and yeah, it's been fun.
Mm. So if you could give yourself some advice, with the benefit of hindsight now, what would you tell yourself back in 2010?
Buy more Bitcoin. Because at one point I did look in my inbox because I've been so tech adjacent for so long that I had at least the first mention in my personal inbox a long time ago, and I think I bought a crypto kitty instead of, Bitcoin, which those things are not very valuable. But more practically, I've made some mistakes with contracts over the years, not looking for renewal dates and getting out of contracts, that, has cost me some money over the years. So, paying closer attention to contracts and renewals, would have saved me a lot of money. And then I had, the first couple of years, some issues with accountants that weren't local to New York State that I was working with. And then in year 3, I had, like, 3 years of back taxes of New York City taxes, which are the highest. So that was, challenging. So finding, like, a good accountant, is really important because I kinda got screwed a little bit the first couple years, but I was also very young and, trying to figure out this whole running a company at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, some of these jurisdictions have complicated taxes, like New York State with the state and the city tax, and then zip code level sales taxes. It's a lot for a small business owner to try to keep up with. So
Yeah.
finding that good, knowledgeable, reliable CPA is really important. I couldn't agree more. But of course, that's the industry I'm in. So of course, I'm going to agree.
Really important.
Um, And so these days, what kind of clients are you working with? And you still very focused on social, or kind of what's the umbrella of services that you provide?
Yep, social media marketing is still our bread and butter. Influencers are all the rage, so we get a lot of, requests for influencer programs, which we've done a bazillion of those over the years, so they're always fun. One accolade that I have is that I'm the first resident in Cincinnati to have a hyper-realistic, AI avatar made of myself.
Hmm.
And it's still the very early days of these AI avatars, but we haven't gotten so many clients on board, but I do help people get cloned, and we've got a few, potential projects, to really involve AI avatars as new marketing assets. So I'm getting really excited about that, and we're doing a lot of the groundwork, for that. So I would just say, like, kind of adapting with, AI avatars are a whole new format, for people to be on camera without actually being on camera. Um, and for the AI avatars, as long as they're not deep fakes and the major providers, they're all responsible AI and not really the traditional Gen AI. So you feel good using them too. So we're still in the early days and not seeing a ton of adoption of the AI avatars, but I think in the next couple of years, everyone is going to have their own AI avatar before long in their online communication toolkit.
Interesting.
I get a lot of different reactions to that.
I'll have to go look up what an
Well,
AI avatar actually does now. I'm curious. Mhm.
yesterday was at the time of that we're recording this, yesterday was our September since the AI meetup, and sometimes my clone makes an appearance, and she welcomed everyone yesterday, and uh, a lady came up to me, she's like, "That's your most realistic one yet that I've seen." So they're really fun to get people's reactions and start putting them to use.
It sounds like you're somewhat collaborative with other marketing agencies to provide other services that your clients need. So, are there particular kinds of agencies that you like to partner with?
Yeah, we're very collaborative because we like to stay in our lane. So, like SEO specialists, although that industry is changing so much. I have a fabulous ads guy, but some of our clients, have paid media partners that look to us for organic, and then we work with them collaboratively on the paid side. Same with influencers, like a lot of paid agencies don't like to do the execution and the influencer management, but they need it for, their strategies. So we do a lot of that. And then some other bigger agencies will sometimes, white label us and just use us to augment some of their services. So we see that every once in a while too. But we like working directly with the brands when we get a chance.
When you're not working, I don't know how you have much time on your hands, but when you're not working, What do you like to do outside of work?
Well, aside from, travel, and I'm more of a foodie than a cook, so I like to go out and eat and try restaurants, but, also play with the AI tools. This past August, I finally had a chance to do a deep dive after interviewing and seeing all the videos about AI video. And I have a team, that does video editing, but I was like creative challenges. So I taught myself using YouTube, some AI video editing and just video editing in general. And the project ended up being a whole kids album on media literacy, that was really fun, to produce. So, um, creative projects, however those manifest, is something that I would like to do in my free time.
What's the name of that album?
It is on YouTube. I'm currently on Spotify and the music listening things. You can, find it by searching for Ella the Consent Accord.
Awesome. And you've got a podcast. Tell people where they can find that too.
Yep, it's called Creativity Squared. There's 75 episodes, and I'm taking a break, before season 3. But, it's on anywhere that you listen to your podcast, and you can go to creativitysquared.com, and all the episodes are on YouTube as well.
Cool. Anything else?
Uh I think that's it. The Mayor's AI Task Force, we haven't, officially launched yet. That announcement will be later this month, but I have a newsletter that you can sign up for at Creativity Squared, and I do weekly updates on AI, some social media marketing, but that's a great resource to stay up to date on all things that I'm up to.
So it sounds like if there are listeners here who are still struggling a little bit to navigate AI and want to know somebody who's spent a lot of time navigating AI and probably made some great progress, they should check you out in these various resources that you're involved with.
And, the podcast, I mean, I interviewed 75 different people from creatives to moral ethicists to builders. So I'm very proud of that content, and definitely recommend people checking that out if they're curious and beginners to AI.
Awesome. Awesome. And if somebody just wants to reach out to you for business purposes, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
At LinkedIn, I'm Helen Todd in parentheses human. So that's the easiest way to find me, on LinkedIn. Oh, and I forgot, I'm also writing a book on the imagination age. I think my video project took over in August, so I'm back to writing this month in September.
Mm. How do you define the imagination age?
Well, the imagination age is an invitation for people to reimagine our shared future. Uh, I think what was it, September, October of last year, Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, who's behind ChatGPT, did this big manifesto blog post about how we're going to enter the intelligence age. And how it reads is very much algorithmic determinism that AI and tech is coming, get on board or, get off the train. And reading it's like, where is human agency in this future? And who is just gets to make the decisions related to this technology? That is not answered in his post at all. So the imagination age is a counter to that of I want a future where there's human agency and that's human centered and that it's the tech is for humans and that we're just not all bending ourselves to feed the tech or whatever. So the imagination age builds on traditions of Afrofuturism that asked, where are Black people in the future? Because a lot of traditional sci-fi was very white in the future. So what does that mean for diversity? Indigenous futurism. And solar punk, which is counter to cyberpunk and a more positive outlook to our future. So it's really an invitation to reimagine our shared future and one that centers humans and human agency and what that looks like.
Well, this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much for spending the time with us, Helen. And I can tell you're passionate about figuring out how to integrate all this new technology with humanity and not losing sight of humanity in the midst of all this technological innovation.
Yeah. Well, we've always said at Sociality Squared, we always remember, although now with so many bots taking over the internet, we always said behind every screen is a person, but we care very much for the people behind the screens and part of our communities. And that definitely hasn't changed and won't change.
So, for those listening, if you learned something today or you just enjoyed the discussion, please share this podcast with other agency owners and get this information in other people's hands because having discussions with people like Helen probably stimulates a lot of good thought into how we can all develop out our own businesses. So, share the podcast, please, if you enjoyed it. And I really appreciate your time again, Helen.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on. Enjoyed the conversation, Cal.
Thank you. This has been another exciting episode of the Marketing Agency Power Hour. We'll see you all next time. Another episode in the books. Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and more, please visit marketingagencypowerhour.com. This show is sponsored by SmartBooks, providing marketing agencies with bookkeeping, accounting, and finance support. With SmartBooks, you gain the clarity and confidence to make your agency a success. Until next time,